All right, this lesson is about completing the square. So we're going to be able to solve more quadratic equations by completing the square and then converting it to vertex form. So the summary of solving quadratic equations: to find the roots, the zeros, or the x-intercepts. We could use a graphing calculator and find the x-intercepts. We could factor and use the zero product property. We can solve by square roots. We can complete the square, or coming in the future is to use the quadratic formula. So in this box here, it reviews the steps to completing the square. So you can go ahead and pause if you'd like to. I'm going to go ahead and just do a review problem. So here's a quadratic equation, and we want to solve the roots. So when we complete the square, we want to bring that constant to the right, so that minus 15 to the right side. So what we do is we just go ahead and add 15 to both sides. And then I always just like to leave a spot. Now we're going to go ahead and complete the square. So we're going to take half of 14, which is 7. And then we always square that number. So 7 squared is 49. And that's what we add to both sides of the equation. So the original now is in pink. And then we're going to balance out both sides by adding 14 to the left, or 49 to the left, and then 49 to the right. Now we can factor it because it's a perfect square trinomial. So what are the factors of 49 that add to 14? That would be positive 7 and positive 7. And then we can combine them together into one binomial squared. The right side, when we add 15 and 49, we get 64. So we have completed the square, we factored it, and now we're ready to use our square root property. So we're going to square root x plus 7 all squared, and then square root 64. And then we simplify, and we get x plus 7 on the left, and then plus or minus 8 on the right. Then we're going to move that 7 to the right, so we subtract 7 from both sides. And now we have two answers. The first answer is when we add 8. And the second answer is when we subtract 8. So negative 7 plus 8 is 1. And then negative 7 minus 8 is negative 15. So our two solutions to this quadratic equation are negative 15 and positive 1. Recall that the vertex form of a quadratic function from lesson 5.1 looks like that, where the vertex is your h comma k. What we can do is we can rewrite quadratic functions to vertex form so we can quickly identify the vertex. So here is a quadratic equation that is in standard form. So this is what we call standard form. And we want to get it into the ping form so we can quickly identify the vertex, which is our max or minimum. So what we do is we take the function and we group the x squared and the x term together. And then I'm going to put that constant outside. Now we're ready to complete the square. So we take half of the bx term, so half of 16 is 8. And then we square that number. So 8 squared is 64. So now we're going to go ahead and add 64 to that parentheses. Now, when we were solving quadratic equations by completing the square, we would have that minus 12 on the other side. So to balance this out, we just added 64 to this equation. So we have to undo it. So we have to subtract 64. Now we're ready to factor. So we factor this trinomial right here, and we get x plus 8 and x plus 8. And then the right side, outside of the parentheses, those terms combine to negative 76. Now those two blue binomials can combine to one binomial, all squared. Now what we have is vertex form. So now we have the vertex form of this quadratic, that we can now find the vertex. So the vertex is going to be h, comma, k. Now we have to be very careful here. This right here is our h, but we have to take the opposite sign of it, if you remember that from earlier in our chapter. So it's going to be negative 8, just the h. So I say opposite h, same k. And then here's our k, which is negative 76. So we have identified the vertex form and what the vertex will be. All right, let's do another one. So here is our quadratic function in standard form. What we're going to do is we are going to group the first two terms together, the x squared and the x. Leave a little space, and then the constant goes outside the parentheses. Now we complete the square. So we take half of the b term, so half of negative 4 is negative 2. Then what we do is we square that number, and we get 4. So we're going to add 4 to the parentheses. Now we just change the equation. We increase the function by 4. So to undo it, we need to subtract 4. So we just do that outside. So if we were to get rid of those green numbers, that just really is 0. So now we can factor it. So we factor the trinomial. The factors of 4 that add to negative 4 are x minus 2 and x minus 2. And then outside here, this just becomes negative 1. Now we have those two binomials in the blue condensed to one binomial squared. Now we have it in vertex form. We can identify the vertex. Opposite h, so opposite negative 2 is positive 2. Same k, negative 1. So this is your h, that's your k. So the vertex is 2, negative 1.